Right, so what we're doing today, we're analyzing the picture that FromSoftware put out for their new Elden Ring expansion, DLC, Shadow of the Erdtree. I don't do that very often. I'm more into doing like essays about movies, books, games, and all that. But I just love Elden Ring, so I decided to do that for this time, just to see how it goes, see if it's interesting, see if I get anything wrong or if anything right. But without further ado, let's look at this picture. Right, so I'll start here from left to right, and if we can look at this big tree, bleeding gold. I've heard a lot of people like talking about that. That can either be a previous tree, like wrapping around the Erdtree. That can be the Erdtree itself. I think I agree with people that say that is possibly another tree, and that the Erdtree is wrapping itself around it, right? The reason is that you can see that the tree wrapping around it is kind of completely dead or not alive in the sort of Dark Souls kind of way, in the sense that it's a hollow tree, or it's an undead tree, or it's an unkindled tree, or a graceless tree, right? And the tree in the middle is a tree full of grace, and that's what it's bleeding out. It's bleeding out grace because this tree wrapping around it is sucking its grace, its souls, its humanity in some way. The whole idea of this picture, I think, and again, 50% of people will be right, 50% of the people will be wrong. I could be either way, but my thinking is that happens in the past, I think, and the whole idea of this picture is the origin of Miquella's following. Not necessarily Miquella's Erdtree, but Miquella's following. And we can see here on the right side of this picture, you can see Miquella and mounting Torrent, which I believe is Torrent. And it's Miquella in his Centrinus form. Why do I believe that? The only reason I believe that is because there's so many Centrina lilies around it, so I assume that is his Centrinus form, is when he left the Erdtree, the Golden Order, and decided to create his own following, his own ideal place to live outside of this outer god's influence, and that's when he went from being Miquella, son of Radagon, to being Centrina. Not necessarily a way to hide it himself or anything like that, but just a change on his identity. Like Centrina being this entity that helps others, that try to help, that will try to bring them into a better world outside of the Erdtree's influence, outside of the Golden Order and the Elden Beast and all that influences. And then of course after that he builds his Erdtree in FL, and then becomes the Miquella of the Erdtree. Another reason why I think this happens in the past is that it almost feels like an origin of the Erdtree rather than an origin of the Tree itself. I think the Erdtree and where it stands now, that was one of the triggers why Mikela left. So the Erdtree came to the lands between, and not the Erdtree, but the outer god, like the Golden Order, came to the lands between and entrapped these lands, right? So they took them from the whole outside world and put it outside of time itself. And that's again, the whole Dark Souls kind of idea of life and death, being undead, being hollow, being the lack of humanity that limits your death, and the whole idea of grace and graceless being this dualism between life and death. And I think that's one of the triggers why Mikela decides to leave the Golden Order, is this entrapment of this new seedling, which is the current Erdtree in the current timeline of Elden Ring, and sucking the life source of this world. This goes by another theory, especially Vatividia's theory on the original tree in the lands between, and how the Erdtree works as a parasite. You can see his theory on this video that I'll be linking here, and it's a very interesting video. I like his theories, and sometimes he's wrong, sometimes he's right. Most of the time he's right, and I really enjoy looking at his theories. But other than that, we see some ruins here, and I believe those ruins are like very, very old places that are now being taken over by the Golden Order, and then they're gonna build the whole capital around it and the whole civilization around it. And this is probably the society or the people, the culture that lived here, and now is in Faramazula, which is this land outside of the current of time, of the flow of time. That's why I think that DLC will take place in the past rather than the future. Mostly because of Mikela's and his form, mostly because of the centuriness lily all around it, and because of this interpretation that I have of the Erdtree and this other tree around it. Again, Vatiot also put a video about that, so you can check his video and see who's right, who's wrong. Yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll be trying to make more things like that if it is interesting. But if you're interested in sci-fi and fantasy, books, video games, movies, just follow the channel. Thank you.